Hey guys, thanks for joining me on the second episode of Draw Near Moment. And today I want to talk to you about the idea that you are not disqualified. Stick with me. You know, when we're younger, we have this crazy idea that anything is possible. I'm talking like when we're really little. I remember growing up and I decided what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I decided I wanted to be a Power Ranger. And not just any Power Ranger, I wanted to be the green Power Ranger. Because that guy was clearly the best. I know he became the white Power Ranger, but the green one's better. I'm just telling you right now. But then I grew up a little bit, I matured a little bit like fine wine, and I decided, you know what, I think I want to be a pro wrestler. Now, looking back on that, I don't think I have the physique for that kind of thing, so I'm kind of glad that that was a phase. But then you get to like middle school, and maybe you've had this one too, it's just like, I just want to be famous. I don't care what it's famous doing, I just want to be in the spotlight. I want everyone to want my autograph. I want that experience. But it's funny because in high school and in college, your vocabulary and your dreams kind of shift a little bit. And then it goes to like, I just want a job. I just want to not, I want to actually do something for a living. I just don't want to end up in the street, or whatever, right? And we have like these nightmares growing up that we're never going to figure out what we're going to do with our lives. And it's funny because life has a way of just beating the dreams out of us. And it's got a way of just talking us out of whatever we want to do with our lives. And it's funny because in the beginning we believe anything's possible, but then later it's like, ooh, maybe not, And I'm a believer, so I kind of have a problem with this. Because I actually believe God when he says that he knit me in my mother's womb. I believe that I wasn't a surprise to him. I believe that he's actually got a plan for me and he's going to do awesome things with me. But at the same time, and I believe that God has put a fire in my heart and he's got something specifically for me to do. But at the same time, so often I struggle and I have doubts and I have struggles and I just start wondering, like, can I actually, I believe God's got big things for me, but I don't know if I can actually accomplish it. Like, what if what if I'm just not enough? And if you ever felt that way, then you're in good company, because there's this character named Moses. And he's kind of a big deal in the Bible. And he's kind of like a Hall of Famer, awesome character in the Bible, one of my favorites. And he had the same kind of doubts. Now, but when you think of Moses, you probably don't think of doubts. You don't think of him being scared in the corner. You think of his showdown with the Pharaoh that included plagues and included the Red Sea parting and all this awesome things. And he's having a showdown with the most powerful person in the world. And somehow, through it all, he wins. And it's an amazing, amazing thing. But that's not how he began. Because one day, before this all began, he had a humble beginning. He was a sheep herder for 40 years. And God actually approaches him, and he gives him the mission, and he gives him his destiny in this one swoop. And let's pick it up. Now I'm going to skip around a little bit, but just skip with me, stay with it, and it'll be awesome. So we're going to pick up in Exodus 3:9. And now the cries, and this is God talking, and it says, "And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them." And he's talking about the Israelites. "So now I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." And so God had seen the Israelites being oppressed and enslaved for 400 years. And this is Moses' people. It's not like he was just unrelated to these people. Like, this is Moses' people. This is a passion he's probably had for a long time. He's wanted to see this happen. And God's saying, hey, the day has finally come. This 400 years of slavery is going to end, and I'm going to use you to do it. Now let's hear his response. And it says, "But Moses said to God, 'Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?'" And so Moses' first response is, "God, who am I to do this? Like, I'm not that special. Like, I think you might have the wrong dude." And I love it because God isn't like, "Oh, no, Moses, you're great, you're awesome. Like, I don't worry about it. I totally got you on this one. You're going to do awesome. God says something a little different. It says, and God said, I will be with you. And he's like saying, you're not doing this alone, Moses. Like, I'm going to be with you every step of the way. And maybe that's a key to getting past the whole not feeling adequate. Maybe just realizing that God is with us. But Moses still has his doubts, and he says, Moses answered, and this is in chapter 4, verse 1, so I'm skipping a little bit, and it says, Moses answered, what if they do not believe me, and say, the Lord did not appear to you? And then the Lord said to him, what is in your hand? And God does this really cool thing with Moses where it kind of equips him. And he does this thing with a staff, and he says, hey, Moses, take your staff, throw it down, and it becomes a snake. And pick it back up, and it becomes a staff again. And he has this leprosy thing where he puts his arm in something, and it comes out, and it's got leprosy. He puts it back in, and it's healed. And he also gives him this other thing with river and blood, and it's just, another cool little thing that he can show people so people know that he's legit, or at least they think he's awesome, if they don't think he's from God. And God is equipping him in this moment. He's getting him ready. He's giving him the tools he needs to go after this. And then Moses again has doubts after all of this. Even though God is saying, I'm with you, here's some things. Moses still has doubts. And it says, Moses said to the Lord, pardon your servant, Lord. I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. And the Lord said to him, who gave human beings their mouth? Who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight or makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak and will teach you what to say. And again, Moses is dealing with these doubts. Like, God, I don't speak good. Like, don't you need to be a good speaker to lead people out and rally people? And God's like, dude, I've invented your tongue. Like, I know what speech is like. And God is again dealing with the doubts. But then finally Moses has a breaking point. Now, we kind of all picture ourselves in this story being like Moses and being like, yes, like I'm so in. Like, let's do this thing right now. Let's free all the people. But it's different when you in your imagination versus reality. And when it's actually happening to you, at least I picture that in my mind. I'll be, gung-ho about it. But in reality, I probably would have just as many or even more doubts as Moses. And Moses gives into this weakness. And Moses said, pardon your servant, Lord, but send someone else. Please send somebody else. And even throughout all of this and all of Moses' doubts and all these things, God still uses Moses to do something awesome. And listen, I find this so relieving, by the way, because I don't know if you know this, Moses is, a big deal in our faith. I think I've already covered that. But even he had doubts, major doubts, huge doubts, before God used him to do something big. And if God can deal with Moses' doubts, then maybe he can deal with mine too. And, and throughout this whole thing, Moses is constantly trying to disqualify himself from his destiny. He's constantly trying to talk God out of this. But God dealt with the doubts. And I think we do this so often. In fact, I've done this in my life because I've had 2 doubts when it came to this kind of stuff. Because I have always, or not always, but I've had a passion for speaking and teaching and sharing the truth for a long time now. But there are 2 doubts that I've always kind of dealt with when it came to that. And now when you hear them, they're going to sound really small. But I promise you, these were huge to me. These were huge hurdles that I had to get past before I could actually go after my destiny. And I'm still not at my destiny yet. I'm still going through it. But the first one was this. But before I tell you what it is, I want to say this one phrase that I think has a lot of meaning. It's the idea that sometimes we let small things get away of a big destiny. In these moments, in these moments when I was dealing with these things, that they were getting in the way of my destiny as well. And the first one was this. I'm an introvert. Now, I've seen speakers for a long time, and I never got the sense that they were introverts. But the thing that's so awesome about God is that God, as I went after my destiny, that God dealt with my doubts. And I remember one day I was talking to a college pastor, and he was like, and I'm asking about this stuff, like, I feel called to all this stuff, but I just don't know. And I'm like, he's like, well, why? And I was like, because I'm an introvert. You know, introverts don't do these kinds of things. They don't speak out in public. They don't lead people. And this is a guy who has literally led ministry that's touched hundreds and thousands of people's lives. He's been on stage in front of thousands of people multiple times. And I'll never forget what he said to me. He's like, dude, I'm an introvert. And it was so relieving. It was like the weight of the world lifted off my shoulders. God dealt with that doubt. And the other one was this. I have an issue with my voice. And maybe you've ever heard, I don't know if you've ever heard your voice recorded, played back to you. And my voice, to me, it doesn't sound that great, because you need a really strong voice. You need a really soothing and strong and powerful voice to be speaker, right? And I'm like, God, somewhere in the blueprints when you were making me, you subtracted that from me, because in my mind, my voice is not that great. And I remember one day this lady came up to me after I spoke in front of my church, and again, going after my destiny, and God again dealt with the doubt, and she was like, you got a great voice. And she'll never know what that meant to me, because that was a huge hurdle. And maybe you're like, Titus, no, she was wrong. You have a terrible voice. But either way, at least somebody doesn't think I have a terrible voice. And it gave me what I needed to take the next step. Now, I don't know what it's for you, but I have this list I call the enoughs. And I got one more tablet right here. Let me find my list and that I call the enoughs. And maybe you have doubts floating around your head, and maybe they sound a little bit like this. Like, I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough or handsome enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not talented enough. Not dedicated enough, and I'm not good enough. Or maybe you think your past is stopping you because you've done something that's a little shady in your past. But I would say this, that if God has put a fire in your heart to do something, then you need to go for it. If he's given you something to get passionate about, then get passionate about it and go after it. There's nothing sadder in life than a believer who really doesn't believe. It doesn't really believe that God can use them to do something special. There's nothing sadder than a person at the end of their life with regret. And if you have doubts in your heart, but God has put a fire in there, I would just say go after it. God will deal with the doubts. Have some faith and just go after the fire in your heart. Take a chance on yourself. Take a risk and believe that God will catch you. And go after it, and God will deal with your doubts, because you are not disqualified. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Draw Near Moment, and I want to thank all the people who are supporting me through this. The first video was awesome. I know 60 or 50 views or whatever it is now. Doesn't seem like a lot of views on YouTube, but man, I was really thinking it was going to be 20. So I am so thankful for all the support and all the encouragement. I got no negative comments. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for supporting me with this dream of mine. And if you want to support me more, or if you like what I'm doing here and you just want to stay in tune with me, there's a subscribe button on the screen. You can just click that, and then I'll help you subscribe to my channel. It'll keep you in touch. Also, share it on Facebook. A lot of you guys did that. Thank you for doing that. And also follow me on Twitter. Not a lot of people are doing that. If you could be one of the first. So it's at Titus Fuller. And again, thank you guys for joining me today. And I will see you next Wednesday for another episode of Draw Near Moment. See ya.